Let's get straight to the point. Sometimes you may be carrying more weight than you need to. It could be something that makes you tired and stops you from growing. Maybe it's friendships that aren't good for you, habits that get in your way, or ideas that aren't really yours. But have you ever thought about why you still keep all this? Sometimes being brave means leaving behind what no longer helps. Stoic philosophers teach that we should pay attention to what we can change and accept what we cannot. This makes us feel free, without having to explain or ask anyone for permission. When we let go of these weights, we become lighter and can live how we really want. In fact, what we decide to let go of shows much more about who we are than what we insist on holding on to. Life is too short to get caught up in what others expect of us or in choices that only slow us down. Today, I'm going to show you how to let go of those weights and find peace within yourself. And before I start, I want to tell you a special story that shows the value of letting go of what no longer serves us. John was a very experienced climber, famous for tackling high mountains and difficult trails. But this time he chose an even greater challenge, climbing Kora Mountain, the highest and most complicated of them all. The name of this mountain means liberation. Knowing it would be a difficult adventure, John prepared his backpack with everything he would need to survive. He also placed some objects that had a special value to him: a stone from another mountain that he had climbed, a notebook where he wrote down his ideas, and an amulet that his mother had given him. During the first few days of the climb, John realized that his backpack was very heavy. The path was steep, the air seemed weaker, and the cold bit like ice. To make matters worse, a storm arose, and he had to take shelter in a small cave. Sitting there, tired and feeling the weight of his backpack, John began to think. He knew that to continue climbing he would need to be fast and light. But how can he leave behind those objects that are so important to him? John opened his backpack and looked at everything that was there. First he held the notebook, full of thoughts and achievements, but now it seemed to just take up space. Then he picked up the stone, which represented an ancient victory. Lastly, he looked at the amulet his mother gave him. It was difficult, but he realized that his mother's love did not depend on that object. With that in mind, he set the amulet aside, knowing that the connection between the two was something he would always carry in his heart. With the lighter backpack, John felt his strength return. When the storm passed, he continued climbing. Now he was faster and more focused. When he reached the top of the mountain, John understood what liberation meant. It wasn't just about reaching the top, but leaving behind what was heavy and unnecessary, carrying only what really mattered. At that moment, John realized something important. Life is like that backpack. It becomes easier and lighter when we leave behind what we no longer need. Only then can we achieve our biggest goals. Moral of the story: sometimes we can only achieve our dreams when we have the courage to leave behind what hinders us. The weight of the things we carry only seems heavy after we finally let go. So what can you take away from your life to feel lighter? Number 1, the desire to control everything. We only have 24 hours in a day, but we often try to carry more than we can handle. We try to hold everything around us, as if, by having control over everything, we can prevent something bad from happening. But is this possible? A philosopher named Blaise Pascal said that people become unhappy because they can't just stay still and calm in one place. This desire to control everything makes us forget something important. Life cannot be completely controlled. When we try to do this, we only become anxious and worried. Life follows its own paths, and they are not always the way we planned. Sometimes curves or changes appear that we don't expect. The more we try to master everything, the more we suffer and lose our calm. But here's the secret. What we can really control is how we react to things. We can choose how to act when something unexpected happens, learn to accept what we cannot change, and find peace within ourselves. This is true power, and it makes us freer. When we stop trying to control everything, it doesn't mean we're giving up. In fact, we are choosing to live more calmly and happily. Without this, we run the risk of fighting with life, suffering every time something goes beyond our plan. Remember, sometimes to find peace, we need to let go of that which was never ours to control. Number 2, speaking emotionally. Words spoken in the heat of emotion can be as sharp as invisible blades, creating wounds that, even over time, are unlikely to heal completely. Often, they remain as painful echoes in the memory of those who hear them and those who say them. The ability to pause and think before speaking is not just an exercise in self-control, it is an act of wisdom and kindness. Speaking on impulse is like throwing a stone in a moment of anger. The impact happens, but the stone never returns to our hands. The intensity of an emotional outburst, however brief, can leave deep marks. These marks are not only external on those who receive our words, but also internal on ourselves, who carry the weight of repentance. Stoic teaching warns us, when we allow emotions to dictate our words, we are, in fact, handing over control of our actions to chance, to what is outside of us. At that moment, we miss a valuable opportunity to demonstrate inner strength. Marcus Aurelius, one of the greatest defenders of Stoic serenity, taught that inner peace requires that we teach the mind to value silence before any response. This does not mean repressing what we feel, but cultivating a strength that allows us to respond to the world with intention and clarity. Choosing silence is actually an active act of courage, a way of telling yourself, I am greater than this moment of impulse. The challenge is not to avoid feeling, but to learn to perceive the exact moment between the stimulus and the reaction. In that small interval, which often seems insignificant, lies gigantic power. It is at this moment that we choose whether we will be hostages to circumstances or masters of our actions. Recognizing this gap and using it wisely is the true strengthening of self-control. In moments of emotional tension, pausing becomes a gesture of deep respect for ourselves. It is in this brief silence that we are able to decipher our emotions, evaluate the potential impact of our words, and choose a response that is aligned with who we really are. Silence, far from being weakness, is a manifestation of strength, as it allows us to see clearly and act with purpose. Think of a confrontational situation where someone provokes you or something deeply disappoints you. The natural impulse may be to fight back with sharp words or accusations, but what do we really gain from that? The same occurs in moments of euphoria, where promises and commitments made without reflection end up becoming burdens on our journey. Choosing silence in these cases gives us the gift of time, allowing our words and actions to reflect our essence and not just the passing emotion. The Stoic pause is like a solid bridge between emotion and reason, a safe space to reorganize our thoughts. When we practice this habit, we realize that self-control goes beyond emotional intelligence. It is also a demonstration of deep respect for ourselves and others. It is a tool that allows us to live calmly, act with intention, and avoid being swept away by momentary impulses that often take us away from who we really want to be. Number 3. Lies. Have you ever noticed how some people say one thing but act completely differently? This contradiction is a reflection of the disconnect between who we are and what we present to the world. It does not go unnoticed, neither to others nor to those who carry it. The lack of truth is like an invisible weight that accompanies us at every step, even if we cannot touch or see it. Every lie we tell is one more brick in a wall that separates us from our true essence. Living in truth is like opening the windows of a dark room and allowing the light to enter. When we remove the lies, we remove the shadows that obscure our path and make room for our essence to shine with authenticity. Epictetus, the wise Stoic, reminded us, "First, tell yourself what you would be, and then do what you have to do." This teaching invites us to align our actions with our values, choosing the path of truth to get closer to who we really are and a more genuine life. Every lie we tell forces us to carry a weight that is not ours, to live a story that does not belong to us. It's like acting in a play without a script, where every word spoken ties us more deeply into a role that we haven't rehearsed and that doesn't represent us. Over time, the truth emerges, as it always does, and maintaining the illusion requires exhausting effort that drains our energy. Stoic philosophy teaches us that coherence between what we believe and what we do is the key to self-knowledge and inner peace. Choosing truth is choosing freedom. Those who embrace honesty find a light path, without the weight of masks or the need to please external expectations. Being authentic is more than a virtue. It is an act of courage that allows us to walk firmly without fear of stumbling upon contradictions. It's like abandoning shoes that constrict us and finally walking barefoot, feeling the ground beneath our feet and experiencing the freedom of being ourselves. Honesty is not just a matter of morality. It is a portal to inner peace and building sincere relationships. Neuroscientist Sam Harris said, "Freedom is living without needing to hide." When we leave the lies behind, we make space for clarity and confidence to flourish. Truth becomes a solid foundation, allowing our lives to stand on authenticity and purpose, and freeing us from carrying the unnecessary weight of being someone we are not. Number 4. Fear of the opinions of others. Have you noticed how the opinions of others can influence our decisions so much? It's curious, but not surprising. Since the dawn of humanity, we have learned that belonging to a group was synonymous with security and survival. This instinct has accompanied us to this day. Only now, instead of fleeing from predators, we seek to escape the discomfort of being judged. Living in society often means going with the flow, even if it takes us places we don't want to be. It's like walking against a crowd. Each step requires courage, conviction, and strength to resist the overwhelming pressure to follow along. Judgment is like a social tool designed to create order and patterns of behavior. On a certain level, it maintains a basic cohesion that facilitates coexistence, but at a high cost, the limitation of individual authenticity. Plato, with his timeless wisdom, reminded us that the greatest punishment imposed on those who refuse to govern themselves is to be governed by someone inferior. When we let ourselves be carried away by the fear of other people's judgment, we hand over the reins of our lives to standards that don't always reflect who we really are. Living to please others is like carrying an invisible chain. It holds us, but in a subtle, almost imperceptible way. It's light enough to seem harmless, but strong enough to keep us grounded, away from our dreams and our true potential. Every choice we make based on the fear of displeasure is a small abdication of our essence, a silent no that we say to ourselves and our aspirations. To understand the impact of this, we can use the economic concept of opportunity cost. Every time we choose to please others, we sacrifice something precious, the opportunity to live in alignment with our truth. We stop exploring what really makes us happy, following our own paths, and fitting into molds that were not made for us. It's like paying a high price for something that never really belonged to us. Every yes to please represents a no to ourselves. Every time we stop prioritizing our desires and values, we put another brick in the wall that separates us from who we really are. Over time, that wall gets so high that we can barely see the other side, the side where our dreams, passions, and true authenticity reside. And what do we gain from this? Usually just the emptiness of superficial recognition. So, ask yourself, what is the true cost of living to please others? With every decision made based on the fear of displeasure, we accumulate regrets. It's like buying something expensive that you don't even want. But by understanding this cost and starting to choose what really makes sense for us, we take the first steps towards a more authentic and fulfilling life. This is the biggest investment we can make, investing in ourselves. Now make a small commitment to your journey. Write in the comments, "Investing in me." It may seem simple, but it's a powerful reminder that you're ready to prioritize your authenticity and build a life that reflects who you truly are. And if you're enjoying the content, consider becoming a member of the channel. In addition to helping the channel, you also have exclusive content. Click on the link in the description and become a member right now, returning to the content. Number 5. The dirt of negative thoughts. Negative thoughts are like residue left in the kitchen sink after a meal. At first, they seem harmless, small particles that no one notices. But if ignored, they start to accumulate. Over time, they give off an unpleasant odor, attract insects, and transform what could be a clean space into something chaotic and uncomfortable. This is what negative thoughts are like in our mind. At first, they appear as passing concerns, but when we don't deal with them, they become patterns of fear, insecurity, and self-sabotage. They contaminate not only our view of ourselves, but also the way we see the world. The Stoics teach us that it is not enough to simply push away negative thoughts. We need to investigate its origin. Epictetus reminds us that they are born from distorted judgments and beliefs that limit our potential. Imagine a blocked pipe. Cleaning the surface dirt can temporarily alleviate the problem, but to solve the problem, you need to unclog the source. Likewise, the first step in dealing with negative thoughts is to recognize them, observe them with curiosity and without judgment, like someone inspecting the sink to find what is causing the blockage. Don't let these thoughts accumulate like forgotten dirt. The mind, like the body, needs constant cleansing to stay healthy. Ask yourself, is this thought contributing to my peace? Can I control it right now? If the answer is no, visualize it disappearing, like leftover food that you finally throw away. Imagine the lightness of getting rid of something that no longer serves you. A powerful technique is to redirect your attention to the good around you. Make a list of things you are grateful for or positive events in your life. Keep this list in an accessible place. When you notice yourself falling into a cycle of negative thoughts, read it. Focus on a happy moment, an achievement, or a person who brings joy to your life. This simple exercise helps you replace negativity with a clearer, more balanced perspective. Dami. Thoughts we cultivate are like seeds. What we sow will inevitably grow. If we choose to nourish the mind with gratitude and optimism, we will be setting the stage for harvests of peace and clarity. Clearing your mind of negativity residue is like taking care of a home. A constant and intentional effort that renews the environment and brings comfort. Remember, what you think shapes who you become. Choose consciously what to grow. Allow this reflection to be like a daily mantra, guiding your mind to a state of order and serenity. Life is lighter when we keep our mental sink clean. By discarding what doesn't serve, we create space for light to enter, for new ideas to flourish, and for true peace to take their place. Make this practice a daily habit, like someone who keeps their house in order. After all, the mind is our most important home. Number 6. Limitless digital distraction. We live in a world where digital surrounds us like an infinite ocean. Social networks, incessant notifications, short and captivating videos, series marathons, and a flood of content compete for our attention every second. What was supposed to enrich us with knowledge and connection often traps us in cycles of distraction and mental fatigue. The essential question then arises, are we controlling the digital, or is it controlling us? The issue is not the technology itself, but how we relate to it. Every screen tap and auto-scroll may seem insignificant, but when added together, these moments take us away from control over our time and energy. Instead of living intentionally, we become passengers on a journey dictated by algorithms, reacting mechanically to what appears on the screen. This imbalance takes away our power to direct our days and robs us of time for what really matters. Think of the ancient Stoics, like Seneca and Marcus Aurelius. They lived in different times, but faced distractions in their own ways. For them, simplicity and moderation were keys to a centered and meaningful life. They understood that cutting back on excess was essential to finding clarity and purpose. Today, our distractions are digital, but the lesson is the same. Without discipline, our minds become fragmented, and what we value gets lost in the incessant noise. As Schopenhauer wisely observed, health is not everything, but without it, everything else is nothing. Mental peace and clarity are forms of health as vital as physical health. Without them, our priorities and relationships deteriorate. Every time we choose to ignore an unnecessary notification or disconnect for a moment, we are actually protecting our well-being and reaffirming our autonomy. These are small gestures of mindfulness that accumulate big results. The practice of digital moderation is not a sacrifice, it's an act of self-care. It's like building an invisible wall around our inner peace, a shield that protects us from mental exhaustion. When we create moments of stillness and presence, away from screens. As we regain the freedom to choose what is essential. The digital then stops being an enemy and becomes a useful tool used with purpose. Regaining focus is ultimately about reclaiming ourselves. It's reclaiming time to be present with those we love, explore our passions, and reconnect with our essence. Attention is one of our most precious resources. Protecting her is a gesture of self-love, a reminder that living fully begins with conscious choices. Number 7. Gossip. Imagine yourself at a lively barbecue surrounded by relaxed conversations. Suddenly someone approaches and with a curious tone asks, "Did you know what happened to so-and-so?" Or, "Did you hear about that couple fighting over there?" It's almost a reflex. Curiosity arises, irresistible, as if we were being pulled into a mystery. But before you embark on that conversation, stop and ask yourself, do I really need to know this? Gossip is like fire in a dry field. It starts small, almost insignificant, but within seconds it spreads, consuming everything in its path. Words, once spoken, cannot be undone, and their consequences can be as devastating as an out-of-control fire. Wise people realize that gossip is a poison masquerading as distraction, something that seems harmless but pollutes the soul and weakens the genuine bonds between people. Why then are we so attracted to it? Studies show that much of our daily conversations revolve around other people. In ancient times, this made sense. Sharing information about the group was essential for survival. But today, this habit has turned into a cycle that, instead of connecting, often separates. Gossip fuels insecurities, conflicts, and an insatiable quest to validate our own lives in comparison to others. Before commenting about someone, pause and reflect. Would I be comfortable if someone said that about me? The temptation to know what doesn't belong to us is powerful, but resisting it is an exercise in self-awareness. The solution is not to simply ignore it, but to redirect that energy into something uplifting. Imagine replacing gossip with inspiring conversations, stories that teach, or ideas that transform. As Socrates taught, the best way to gain a good reputation is to be what you want to appear. Choosing words carefully is a reflection of the character we want to build. Try for a week to completely avoid talking about other people's lives. This simple exercise is more powerful than it seems. It transforms your relationships and brings about more authentic and enriching conversations. What about when others start gossiping? Instead of fueling the flame, change the focus. Propose a positive topic, share something curious, or invite others to reflect on a higher idea. Practice mindful pausing. Before speaking, take a deep breath and evaluate the impact of your words. This pause, however small it may seem, is a demonstration of inner strength and respect for yourself and others. If you fall into the trap, don't judge yourself harshly. Acknowledge the mistake, reflect on it, and decide to do better next time. Choosing not to spread gossip is a powerful gesture that demonstrates discipline and a commitment to building a meaningful life. Speaking with intention is more than self-control. It is an act of transformation. As Marcus Aurelius reminds us, everything we hear is an opinion, not a suit. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth. Gossip distances us from this inner truth and the wisdom that is born in silence. By avoiding it, we create space to listen to what really matters, the voice of our conscience and the value of our own actions. But there is something important to understand. If you've been trying for a long time to step out of your comfort zone and learn more but still haven't succeeded, there may be something you don't realize. I know what it could be. It's anxiety. Anxiety is like a snake that comes silently and affects you without you realizing it. It makes you feel bad for days, months, and even years. Living like this is like being sick all the time. But I know a solution. Stoic philosophers, along with modern psychology, have a way to help get rid of this. I myself managed to cure myself of this anxiety. I made a video explaining how you can get rid of this evil, and it's in the first comment. Click on the link in the first comment and start healing from that feeling of anxiety. Number 8. Self-sabotage. Have you ever noticed that friend who seems to live the same romance over and over again? With each new relationship, he finds the same personality, the same way of speaking, the same gestures. At first, the story seems promising, but almost like a script, the outcome is always the same. Or that person who, regardless of where they work, seems to attract authoritarian and arrogant bosses. Is it a mere coincidence? Probably not. These patterns reveal something deeper, self-sabotage, which is born from the insecurities we carry. Like a silent echo of our experiences, it builds cycles that keep us stuck in old stories. The big challenge is to recognize these invisible currents. They don't scream, but whisper, leading us to repeat the same mistakes. The ancient Stoics, masters of understanding the human mind, taught that we can only overcome something when we see it clearly. Our internal ghosts, limiting beliefs, fears, frustrations, fuel these cycles. Epictetus said, "It is not the things themselves that disturb us, but the judgments we make about them." And this is the essence of self-sabotage. It is not the error that imprisons us, but the meaning we attribute to it. Think of a simple example. After a relationship or project gone wrong, you start to believe that nothing works for me, or I'm not good enough. These narratives, repeated countless times, become anchors that bind us, turning failure into a burden rather than a lesson. Until we recognize these patterns, they will continue to shape our future, dictating our steps like a choreography that we cannot change. But there is a way out of this cycle. And he starts with sincerity, looking inside and identifying what keeps us stuck. Recognizing patterns is not enough. We need to replace them. It's like realizing that we're always tripping over the same stone. The problem is not the stone, but the route we choose to follow. Instead of insisting on the same path, we need to chart a new direction. It may seem challenging, but it is essential. Why do we repeat the same mistakes? Often, the fear of new pain makes us seek familiarity, even if it hurts us. It's a false sense of security. We prefer the known to the uncertain. But this choice prevents us from evolving, from reaching a more authentic and free version of ourselves. Repeating the same mistakes is like chaining ourselves to a prison of our own making. Freedom requires courage. Courage to make mistakes again, but on new ground with the possibility of growing. As Brené Brown said, choosing the right over the familiar is one of the greatest acts of courage. Leaving standards means challenging our comfort zone. It's letting go of illusory security and embracing the unknown. And you know what's most interesting? These new paths, despite seeming risky, can take us to more beautiful and liberating places than we ever imagined. Number 9. Need to always be right. Sometimes our need to be right traps us in a narrow, rigid vision, keeping us away from what really matters, growing as human beings and understanding others. This incessant search for confirmation of our own vision limits our experiences and prevents genuine learning. We become so fixated on our perception that we miss the richness that comes from making space for different perspectives. Once, at an American university, a professor did an experiment that revealed exactly this. He divided the class into 2 groups and showed the same image to everyone, but gave different instructions. To one group, he said, "This is my wife's drawing." To the other, he said, "This is my mother-in-law's drawing." Without knowing that they were facing a visual illusion, an image that could be seen in 2 different ways, the students began to vehemently defend what they saw. Some saw a young woman in profile, others an older woman looking down. Debate quickly took over the room, and each group was absolutely convinced that their interpretation was correct. The fervent discussions revealed something fascinating. Each person was so fixated on their vision that they could not consider the possibility of a different reality. It was then that the professor revealed the objective of the experiment. The image was the same, but the perceptions were unique, shaped by each person's experiences and beliefs. This simple but powerful experiment reminds us that our perspective is never the only truth. What we see as right or true is just an interpretation, our interpretation, not the universal truth. Thus, what we think is unquestionable is often just a reflection of our own limited and conditioned beliefs and experiences. The truth, most of the time, is broader than we can see at first glance. Letting go of the need to always be right is a fundamental step towards personal growth. When we let go of this impulse to defend our vision tooth and nail, we begin to see beyond the limitations we impose on ourselves. We become more receptive to other people's perspectives, understanding that the other's reality also has value. As the Stoic philosopher Epictetus said, "It is impossible for anyone to learn what they think they already know." When we close ourselves off to other truths, we prevent genuine learning and expanding our worldview. When we accept that the other person's point of view is as valid as ours, we create an environment for mutual learning. In this mindset, it doesn't matter who is right or wrong. What matters is the opportunity to grow, understand more, and build a shared understanding. Each exchange, each different vision, enriches us and helps us mature. Remember, growing is not about winning arguments or debates. Growing up is being willing to expand our view of the world, to question our certainties, and to learn from others. When we let go of the need to always be right, we open doors to true freedom, the freedom to continually learn and evolve. So the next time you come across a different opinion, stop and ask yourself, what can I learn here? Instead of clinging to what you think you know, open yourself up to what someone else has to offer. Evolution begins when we accept that there is much more to be discovered than simply validating our own beliefs. And if you know someone who could benefit from this reflection, share this message. After all, true growth begins when we spread knowledge, not just opinions. Number 10. Toxic relationships. Toxic relationships are like rust, acting silently and persistently, infiltrating the most intimate spaces of our lives and corroding what was once healthy. Just as rust destroys metal little by little, without us realizing it, toxic relationships feed on our energy, leaving a deep wear on our essence. At first, they may seem harmless, even almost imperceptible, but over time, they spread, contaminating our inner peace, our mental health, and our capacity for growth. What was once a true connection becomes a heavy burden which prevents us from moving forward and living fully. Stoicism teaches us to reflect on what we should really cultivate. Just as we care for a plant, feeding and protecting it so that it flourishes, we must also cultivate relationships that nourish our virtues and strengthen our character. When we are surrounded by people who undermine our confidence, make us doubt ourselves, or simply drain us emotionally, our potential for growth is constantly threatened. They are like stones in the path that prevent us from walking freely. Stoicism invites us to take care of our mind, our peace, and our well-being, just as we would take care of a garden so that it flourishes without being choked by weeds. Marcus Aurelius said, "The soul is dyed with the color of its thoughts." This means that just as thoughts shape our being, the people we interact with also leave their mark on us. They influence our worldview, our emotions, and even our health. When we choose who we share our lives with, we are actually deciding what we will absorb into our hearts and minds. A toxic environment full of negative or manipulative people will inevitably impact us, even if we try to resist. Therefore, it is vital that we choose wisely the people we want around us, giving space to those who strengthen us and do us good. But Stoicism also teaches us that we don't need to cut off every person who challenges us. It's not about being rude or merciless, but about reflecting deeply on the impact that each presence has on our lives. We must be able to sense when someone is bringing us something valuable and when someone is just draining us. We can't control other people's behavior, but we have complete control over how we react and even how much we allow them to affect us. By recognizing this dynamic, we can choose more wisely where and how to invest our energy. The wisdom of Stoicism shows us the importance of avoiding unnecessary conflict. Instead of wasting our energy on empty arguments or confrontations that will lead nowhere, we can choose silence, inner peace, or if necessary, withdrawal. Distancing ourselves from a person or situation that is undermining our emotional balance is not an act of coldness, but of self-knowledge and respect for ourselves. It is not contempt, but wisdom in action. By choosing peace and detachment, we are telling ourselves that our integrity is worth more than the need to be right or to maintain relationships that are not good for us. When we free up these spaces, we open the way to genuine relationships. They are those that elevate us, that help us grow, and that respect our individuality. Far from being a selfish act, this distancing is a commitment to our emotional health, our happiness, and a more meaningful life. When we prioritize relationships that really have value, we are creating a space for people who share the same principles and goals to enter our lives, strengthening our support and coexistence network. The law of supply and demand, which teaches that what is rare has more value, applies here too. The more selective we are about the people we interact with, the more we value our own energy and time. By surrounding ourselves with people who truly deserve our presence, we are actually increasing our self-worth because we give space to those who respect and support us. And by valuing ourselves in this way, we attract people who, in fact, recognize and respect the value of being by our side. Therefore, by choosing wisely who we want to keep close to us, we not only preserve our inner peace, but we also build relationships that enrich us and drive us to be better every day. Number 11. Unrealistic expectations. Unrealistic expectations are like mirages in the desert. They attract us with promises of something perfect, something that seems within our reach, but disappears as soon as we get closer. We are seduced by these images of success, happiness, or perfection that we create in our minds, but in practice, they are unattainable. Life, no matter how much we try to control it, is uncertain, and much of what we desire is beyond our reach. The Stoic Epictetus teaches us that adjusting our expectations does not mean giving up on our dreams, but rather freeing ourselves from the constant frustration that accompanies clinging to the impossible ideal. When we accept life as it is, with its imperfections and surprises, we find more space for inner peace and living in the present moment. How many times do we find ourselves expecting people to behave in the exact way we imagine? We hope that a friend never says something we don't want to hear, that a partner always understands our wishes without us having to express them clearly, that everyone around us sees things the same way we do. These expectations, however natural they may be, rarely come true, and when they are not met, they cause us frustration, disagreements, and disappointments. The truth is that each person is unique, with their own experiences, limitations, and perspectives. When our peace depends on the attitudes of others, we forget that, as human beings, we are all imperfect and unpredictable. We cannot control the reactions and choices of others, but we can choose how to react to situations. Who has never drawn up a perfect plan to achieve success, imagining a straight path without obstacles? But life, contrary to what we imagine, is full of curves, unforeseen events, and surprises. Difficulties that arise along the way are inevitable, and the rigidity of trying to follow an exact route can be suffocating. The reality is that things don't happen as we would like, and by insisting that they unfold in a specific way, we become prisoners of frustration. Accepting that unforeseen events are part of the path is not pessimism, it is wisdom and balance. Think of a field that you care for with care. You do your part. Take care of the soil, plant, water, and protect it. But no matter how much you dedicate yourself, the sun and the rain don't depend on you. What you can control are your actions, but the rest, what is beyond your reach, needs to be accepted. This is peace, knowing what we can do and being at peace with what we cannot control. Rigid expectations do not lead to guaranteed results. On the contrary, they create a life full of frustrations. Disappointment arises when reality does not meet our demands. Adjusting our expectations means embracing emotional flexibility and resilience, and it's this flexibility that frees us from the prison of, "It should have been this way." As Marcus Aurelius wisely said, "Don't waste energy complaining that the world is not as it should be. Improve what you can within yourself." We cannot control the world around us, but we can control our reactions, our feelings, and our actions. True strength lies not in forcing the world to fit our ideals, but in being resilient enough to evolve with it. Life is not something that can be molded to our will. It is unpredictable, changeable, and full of surprises. When we let go of unrealistic expectations and embrace the lightness of accepting what comes, even if it is not what we expected, we find true peace. Peace is not in controlling everything, but in knowing that no matter what happens, we are capable of handling whatever comes. Our strength does not come from rigidity, but from the ability to adapt, learn, and grow. Free yourself from the habit of seeking absolute control. Instead, focus on the present, the now, and allow your dedication to each moment to reveal over time true and meaningful progress in your life. It's not about reaching a point of perfection, but about living with intention and purpose every step of the way. In doing so, you will find a type of success that goes beyond expectations, one that is born from a life that is more balanced, flexible, and aligned with what really matters. If you've made it this far, thank you for sharing these moments of reflection with me. May this path of wisdom become increasingly clear to you.